All right, I think we're live. My name is Matt Storms. Thank you for joining us today on our 132nd Helpdesk Hangout. Been doing these for a long time. Talking about all issues SEO and search related, and we'll talk about some news and some questions that people have. Right now we don't have too many questions, so we'll probably get to come up with some good ones ourselves. So let's go ahead and do introductions, and I do have one question that you guys might be interested in, or at least you guys can get some feedback on a question that I'm having an issue with. So we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. We'll go right to left this time. So William Rock, go introduce yourself.
I'm William Rock, conversion analytics specialist, just loving geeking out.
Awesome. Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny, and I'm generally interested in SEO.
And Barry.
I'm Barry Schwartz. I do search news and lots of other stuff.
Awesome. And as more people introduce themselves, we'll have them introduce themselves as well. As more people come in, we'll have them introduce themselves. Something I've been tackling is internal linking this week and href lang issues. Love to get your guys' thoughts on this. So let's talk about internal linking, for example. Say you have a website with 1 million pages, U.S. based only, not crazy subdomains, not tons of other countries going on, just U.S. based only. Keeps it pretty simple. And you've got 1 million plus pages, and they all have unique content because the site's been around for a long time. You're an older company, and you want to go about the process of creating internal links that point to your keyword list. So your categories, you have your top category pages up here. I'm going to get my whiteboard put up here probably tomorrow. So you have your top pages up here, so your category pages, and then you'll have other product pages and stuff like that down below it. And how would you guys go about doing the internal linking process of building out, because I do believe that there is some serious value in doing internal linking versus external linking. Anybody can, I think that there's a lot of people they'll say, build external links to increase your rankings, all that kind of stuff that we've heard over the last 10 years. But I think with internal linking, you can actually do some really good stuff there as well. Have any of you tested that? Have any of you played around in that realm?
You're trying to boost your SEO rank with internal links?
I think you can.
I mean, that's been around for a long time.
Yep.
Google's publicly said that it doesn't really make a difference, and tells you not to focus so much on this kind of. I mean, as long as everything is crawled, are you trying to pass juice between the pages?
No, I think the main point is to tell the user. So, like, if you have content, body content, and you are passing. So, say you mention. We'll just say content, link, pointing to a category page above it, and so you're mentioning the previous page, and so in the hierarchy, you're mentioning that above it. I think that is acceptable. I mean, you're not trying to game anything. You're not trying to do anything crazy. You're just mentioning. So, like, say if it's a Zippo lighter, okay. I had this lighter for like 20 years now. So this lighter, and I don't smoke. So if you have this lighter and you say, okay, well, it's, if you have a page and it's all about Zippo lighters, and then you link back to a category page of about silver or blue and Coco Pelli Zippo lighters. So if you link up to it, I think that you're doing a reference. It's almost like it's an extension of a breadcrumb almost, I would think.
I think it's helpful for somebody reading that blog post to know where they can buy that. So as long as it's reasonable and not abusive, I think that would be fine and probably helpful.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would never do more than one link. I think more than one is abuse, personally. I hate it when I see pages with 5 or 6 or even more than 2 links, personally. Oh, Kevin, what's your thoughts on that? I know you joined just a minute here late to
What was the premise of the
the
base
thing.
question?
Here. So the premise of the base question was if you have a product page, so this is about internal linking in the content body to the previous category page. So if it's a product page and then you're linking back to the category page in your content body.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what you're saying is kind of my thoughts on it is it relevant? Is there a reason? Is there a user experience reason for it to be there? I'm not so bent about whether there's one or two or three. I get what you're saying about being a bunch of them. I'm more worried about, is this actually relevant to the user? So if there's enough content around that link that supports a justification for taking people to that link, if I'm understanding the question completely, then I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, because I mean, if a user was to do a search and they land on the deep page, so we'll say the Cocopelli Zippo lighter, well, then it would be nice if they could see the content and they could see that, oh, here's more Cocopelli Zippo lighters, or here is Zippo lighters, or here is, you know, it takes them back up the hierarchy if they're on that deep page, if they land on there first.
Well, and let's face it, there's plenty of examples of sites that do well that also take that approach. So, for example, you may also like all of these Zippo lighters. You may also like other lighters that have this graphic depiction on it. You know, you may like other red lighters. Whatever the case is, if that is genuinely helping the person discover additional things, you know, then it's probably relevant to have there.
And William Rock, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'd have to compliment everything that's been said. I think it's a lot of good feedback here, and then add to it with going into analytics, looking at your, you know, you're always making changes. I mean, Google's always making changes. They're A/B split testing constantly. You know, look at the 3-pack. But going back to the topic, look at your, you know, what's happening with those links. If you can actually look at an engagement model and say, okay, you know, looking through the site, I have a heat map and it shows me that these links are being clicked by users, or are they not being clicked by users? And that's going to be, you know, one or two signals. If they're not being clicked, they might not be useful. Even though you think as a webmaster that they are, I think the visitor experience plays a huge role in the way that they guide through your website.
Which actually, I mean, that's a great follow-up to that, William, and I think that kind of speaks to e-commerce sites in general. Well, websites and specifically e-commerce sites in general is you know, we keep hearing that Google generally frowns on you being having pages that are search pages indexed, but there may be, what's that?
A bridge page.
Bridge page, yeah. But there are fringe cases where having a complete listing of something is actually relevant. It's just in how that's formulated, correct?
I 100% agree on that. I've seen so many companies that have done inside search results, and then Google will index them, i.e. Yelp and TripAdvisor and things like that. So I think it really also depends. I think it depends on the company that's doing it. I think it's depending on the markup of the page. I mean, obviously, I think Yelp and TripAdvisor have done an extremely fantastic job of showing what an inside search result page can actually do for you if you do it right. You know, if you look for, you know, top things. I was sending. There's a guy I know who's coming out here to visit in San Francisco here next week, and he was asking, you know, about some things to do, and I said, okay, so top, you know, things to do in San Francisco. TripAdvisor inside search result pulls up #1. And I sent him the page, and it was a good-looking page. I spent a couple minutes looking at the structure. I even went and viewed the source code on it and went through all the stuff. So shout out to Luke and John and all the guys at TripAdvisor for doing a good job on that. They're fantastic at what they do there. Just remind yourself, if you want to go work at TripAdvisor, you have to move to Boston. That's cold. So yeah, so some things to definitely think about there. So let's dive into any other SEO questions, because I know I could go on for a while, and I know people don't always want to hear from me. So what are some of the questions that you're facing this week? You know, Danny or William or Kevin?
I've got a good one for you. So we know that fake addresses is very frowned upon by not only Google, but by other IYP directory services like Yelp and you know, so forth. But I recently was questioned by a client's client that says, well, hey, can you prove it to me? And you know, that's an interesting one, because I personally have never had a client that has been de-indexed from LocalPack or from Google My Business or all of the previous iterations, because we don't mess with that stuff. We don't allow that. We'll actually have somebody sign a piece of paper that says you're doing something that we don't agree with. We're, you know, to distance ourselves. So have you guys, can you point to any specifics where somebody was willing to out a company who actually got caught for using something like a you know, a virtual office / suite that didn't really exist / you know, whatever. Some of those, they don't actually have a business there, because I couldn't find an example to point to.
So if you look in LA, there's a lot of stuff in LA and San Jose and San Francisco where people will set up virtual offices in like Regis buildings. So if you go and you find any of these co-location type spaces where people can go and rent an office for a day and then search all the addresses, you'll see like hundreds of them. So companies are doing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but yeah, definitely like lawyers are big about this. I would definitely look at those.
But the thing of it is like, for example, so take a Regis. You know, the line on a Regis is kind of blurred. Mm-hmm. You know, somebody could legitimately have a Regis building. I mean, they could. They could. I mean, we are in a office park ourselves here. Now we have an actual door. We have an address above our door, but there are people here that are that do not. You know, so just because we have a physical 10,000 square foot spot doesn't mean that those people who are just in shared office space don't legitimately have a reason there. But we know that Google really is super critical of that. And so, yeah, I'm looking for something that specifically says they got de-indexed or taken out because of that type of a situation, where they're in, or, for example, like a business wants to use a friend's business address where they don't actually have a business, and so you're like, well, Google says you have to have a separate entrance, you know, not just a suite number, etc. So I just think it's an interesting conversation, because Google themselves hasn't provided, they say don't do it, but then they don't provide much guidance on when it's legit and when it's not. They say dentists, or they say doctors are okay, you know, like as in professional practices, but that's pretty much where they stop on that. Anyway, I just wonder if somebody else had something on that.
They probably don't want to give too many guidelines, because then people can abuse and spam it. So they kind of keep it vague so that you don't know what you can and can't do, so you're more likely not to do it. Or at least that's their thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're good at doing that too.
Keeping it vague, yep.
William, what you got?
I don't know if I want to get involved in this one, but I've got a couple things. I'm going to compliment the Regis thing because that's something that a lot of people in every sorts of industries are doing. And the radius button in Google My Business is that check mark that you can say, I don't service clients from my area, my location, but you still have a radius of like 90 miles. Well, can you still use that as a P.O. box? Because you don't actually do any business there. But that kind of goes back to even plumbers. If they work out of their trucks, they're not going to have a location per se, but they might have a service area that their trucks go out to, and they're working out.
Right, but Google, and for like specifically Yelp and Yext and so forth like that. Yext is a good example of this because they push out to all of them. Is you can't even submit a PO box. So if you want to say that you're a service area business, that's fine, but you can't put a false address down. And as a matter of fact, I mean, you can put any kind of address that you want on your website, but you can't submit it to those services.
Sure. And then I think
you submit something that doesn't say PO box, but it effectively is. It's like a lot of the UPS stores, you can just give the address of the UPS store followed by a suite number, and they'll deliver to that box.
Right, but when Google, now here again, here's what Google says about it. Google
says it's not, it doesn't comply.
Right,
but,
because there's no signage, and it's
but
not.
I mean, you're in this every day, right? This is your specialty. So don't you ever get approached by businesses that have established a bunch of Regis locations across the country, and they come to you and they say, "Can you help us?" Or do you turn those away?
Yeah, believe it or not, we just if a person doesn't have a physical presence there, and let me rephrase that. If they don't have a physical presence but want to pretend like they do, that's a no joy for us. That's just something where we kind of draw the line. If they have these presences and they're legitimate, and see, now that's the other problem, is because legitimate usage to us does not mean compliance with Google, and that herein lies the problem. But generally, what we are really talking about right now is when people are only grabbing them because they legitimately do not have a presence in that local area. I mean, if they had a legitimate presence in that local area, then they would have some way of denoting that they have a real presence in that area.
Can I actually ask a quick question? I put it in the chat on the side, but it's more on what about fake profiles? I mean, there's a lot of different things happening with businesses on Google My Businesses. They're getting like a 1 or a 2, and then it's all the same message. It's basically you did a horrible job, and cost too much money. And basically it's like an automated message almost. But then when you go to the profile, it's a blank profile that only has no posts, nothing else but the default screen and then the review.
Well, and that's sock puppeting, and that's actually illegal. So I mean, that's a whole. There's I have a legitimate way to create a location, which is not against the law, but Google doesn't like it. And then there's actual falsifying information and creating fake accounts, which is against the law. And one of the reasons I bring this to you guys is I think every once in a while, as I am in this case, yes, we deal with this day in, day out, the location stuff, etc. And I hear a lot of people talk about how it's bad. But you know what? At the end of the day, since I have not personally had a client de-indexed for this purpose, I'm relying on other people's what they're telling me. So we don't really know what that line is. And where I may find something objectionable or sneaky, that doesn't mean that's actually the line that Google's looking at. So we're always trying to interpret things. So I'm open to listen to what other people have actually experienced to make everybody better at it, to really open up.
I mean, one of the other things you have to think about is you might not be de-indexed, but you might have a penalty where you're not showing up for when a person is searching for you. So, you're still in there, but you're just not getting all of the love that you probably should be getting or wanting at any given time.
Which, in that case, Matt, which is a good point. In that case, the problem is then that encourages people to do risky behavior, because then they're like, well, we don't have a listing there now, but we really want to push pin, or we really want to be able to say that we service that market, even though we drive 2 hours to service that market, and we legitimately don't unless called upon to do so. And so I think that's the intent is a harder thing to prove.
So it's almost kind of like a prisoner's dilemma, where you're saying, well, if I do this, then that could happen. But if I do, it's even like Schrodinger's cat, if you really want to talk about it. I mean, there's dilemmas that fall into it. And the thing is that people, I would say noobs, or people who just really want to push it, are going to test those things, not knowing what the limit is and how it could impact their business. And we've all seen companies who've bought links for any given reason, and you'll see that, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't understand why my site is penalized. Well, you bought 500,000 links all in the span of 1 week out of China. That might not be the best thing to do. I had a client like that, and I told them they should just do the smart thing and shut their website down and start a new company. And they did. They had to. It was so bad. Trying to disavow anything would have just been too difficult, actually. And I wasn't the first person that told them to do that. I was like the third. They kept trying to get opinions. Okay.
Well, I'm sure maybe a search of the forums would reveal people complaining about, I got de-indexed, I did all this bad stuff, help me. Have you tried looking?
Believe it or not, I dug through there and I could not find very much recent. Now, this is the other thing, and to be fair, Danny, I'm really looking for recent post-pigeon type data. Because you can go back into the 2010, 2011, 2012, 2000, that range there, it was rampant, and there's some pretty clear information. But bringing that up to current day in pigeon, and it always makes me nervous. Quite honestly, it makes me nervous to make recommendations when all I am able to provide is, here's what Google says, here's what Yext or Yelp and so forth says, but I don't have I have no personal experience. It's all conjecture or anecdotal conversation.
I completely agree. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot
maybe
of this.
It works. That's why you don't see anything or hear anything about it.
It still wouldn't be palatable to me because you can read and you can see that Google clearly does not want that. But yes, I agree. Maybe that is the reason. That's a good point, Danny. I don't know.
Maybe it's like jaywalking.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're going to do it until you get caught, and that's the thing. I mean, a lot of companies are going to do bad things. They're going to do different stuff that's not just going to do well for them. And a lot of them are, like, I had a client the other day that I was telling, I said, stop worrying about what your competitors are doing, and worry about yourself, and do the right things, and care about the users from your perspective. And seeing a pretty good, once they started to get that mindset, now they're like, oh, well, what more can we do? Well, let's not worry about what our clients are.
I think that goes back to what we said before, which is we'll watch clients spend more time trying to circumvent doing things right than they would if they just started doing things right. And that's very frustrating, but, it's also human nature.
It is. I mean, how many times do we see people who they see like, oh, the whole they want to get skinny and lose weight, and oh, there's just another magical pill. You just got to take this magic pill, or you take that magic pill. But nobody wants to go to the gym and work out. I ride my bicycle every morning for 2 hours because I like to eat. There you go. So, and I enjoy riding my bicycle though, but I also really enjoy eating good food. So, okay. So I know Barry's a little bit under the weather today, so I'm not going to pick on him. If he
Yeah,
wants
there's a significantly less snark happening today.
There is. We could all maybe bash on Barry, and he'll just sit there quietly and ignore us, or he'll laugh at us and write stuff in chat. But as far as anything else goes, I think he's going to be pretty chill. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definite cool things that people are doing. So what else? Molly, we're just talking about cool things or problems or issues that you've seen or having to resolve in this last week. What type of stuff are you looking at?
Yeah, well, for the most part, a couple of leads I've gotten there are very interested in local search, being optimized for local search. So we've been talking a lot about 3-pack and reviews, making sure and getting reviews, different various ways you can do that, and just overall optimizing their blog or their webpage for local searches. So some of the challenges they've had is one guy, he is organically already ranked number 1, but he has a second location that he wants to rank as well. So
he's going to compete against himself.
Exactly. So I had to kind of explain to him that with Google My Business, that you have the ability to optimize for several locations, but it's really best to do it under one hat, so to speak, versus trying to get multiple locations to, like you said, compete against themselves. And really kind of, market yourself more as one agency with multiple locations versus versus the multiple locations themselves.
Which is always kind of interesting, because since we deal with multi-location businesses by and large, quite often we will have companies that have multiple dealerships or multiple franchises in the same area. Well, clearly in that case, they're not going to agree to have one site in that area because they're separate businesses, and each one of them is trying to get their own, bit. And so in that case, that's part of what we do, is just to help them figure out how can they delineate the market further, how can they, be as hyper-local as possible, and also look at secondary markets. So, a lot of people become very fixated on primary markets, but you have to remember that almost every location has secondary markets as well. And so really looking at it broadly, and a lot of times we'll have 1, 2, and 3 be all of that brand, or that, whatever that dealer manufacturer is or franchise, but somebody's going to win, because they're not going to have 2 side by side, so somebody's going to win, and most of the time it's the person who's actually actively updating their site and with locally relevant content.
I agree with you, Kevin, and I think something else to point out is the content that each of these locations are marketing, because each location, they may have their own specials or events or things going on that not each location is doing. So I think it's important for each of the specific locations within a business do their own marketing, meaning don't leave it up to corporate to do the marketing for each location. Have each location do their own marketing, and do it regularly, do it frequently, and make sure and use keywords specific to that location. So if somebody's, like, for example, there's a car dealership, Toyota Avenues here in Jacksonville. Well, if you're going to do an event for Toyota Avenues, make sure and put in that title, it's Toyota Avenues, so that people know it's that specific location.
So here's a question for you, though. Do you really want the local, like if you're in charge of corporate marketing and you have 100 businesses underneath you, do you really want each individual office doing their own localized marketing? I mean, how do you say, we want you to do stuff, but here's the guidelines of how we want you to do it?
You have to have a platform, and that's this is going to sound terribly pitchy, because that's what we do. Yeah. Our platform has both mandatory and optional content, and then it also releases the capability to the individual dealer, or whatever that location is, for them to add on content. So the perfect mixture there is, the manufacturer is making sure that the content that is relevant to the brand meets the brand guidelines and all criteria therein, and it also makes sure that they don't have, you know, last year's products on the page that are no longer available simply because they couldn't get around or be bothered to update it. And then what it does is, so you push that content out, and then you have optional content, which is, you know, quality content that's handwritten, that is sent out to the relevant ones. So the North region might get something completely different from the South region and so forth because it's relevant to that area. And your managers are helping them with it, because while it sounds great to say that the locals should do it, they don't, because they're busy running a business by and large. Now, then if you can get them to do the very local stuff, which I love what Molly said, because those are the people that are going to win. The people that are also, you know, putting on very localized content. Hey, we're sponsoring a Little League team for this school, which Google knows where that school is and knows that it's relevant to that area. That we're doing things like she said down on this street. They know where that's at. So it's a combination of all of that, but you have to have a mechanism to control it.
Yeah, I just quickly want to jump in there. I have a quick case study I want to share with an example of what I'm talking about. So this is, oh gosh, 2-3 years ago. And there's an area in our town called the St. John's Town Center. It's really nice shopping outside shopping mall. There's Chick-fil-A there, and they had a brand new product. And they had posted on Facebook, hey, this is the St. John's Town Center Chick-fil-A. If you come in and you sign up, we're going to give you a free sample. So I think right there, that's a prime example of a local establishment from a brand chain doing their own marketing to introduce a brand new product into the marketplace. Because I went ahead and I signed up, and I had a couple of my friends signed up, and we showed up, we walked in, they had their computer there, they were checking off names, handed you a coupon. It was an excellent selling point, because are you going to eat a sandwich without a Coke or French fries? Probably not. So right there, there was an option for them to sell.
Absolutely.
William asked, are they using subdomains or separate URL? They were using a separate URL. They were actually using their own Facebook page. So it was their own separate URL that they were using to market that.
So, and as a follow-up to that, William, what we do is each one of these sites, because they are their own business, each one of them has their own fully qualified top-level domain. We do not use subdomains. It is a fully qualified domain. Now, there's some people that argue about this, and we don't have to get all into this, but here's the thing is, it is not either or. You are still going to have a company directory. That's not what we're saying, is that you omit having a national site. But when you stop and think about how people search, and when there is local intent that is present, they want to find somebody local. They're not looking to be taken to a national site. When you have a local news agency that interviews Bob's sharpening shack that sells mowers and so forth, they don't want to link to John Deere. They want to link to Bob's Sharpening Shack's website. And so you can build things on a local level that provides relevance that are not going to harm overall domain authority at the national level. And then, as happens a lot with our clients, they end up with dual listings. So you have two shots to close the business.
Yeah, and I'd quickly add to that, Kevin, that actually goes into what I call as mobile local marketing, meaning what if somebody's sitting there and they go, I need a Barnes & Noble, and they're typing in, I need a Barnes & Noble near me or by me. So right there, that's another opportunity for, you know, an independent location of a brand to market themselves. And that actually leads into the new algorithm. I don't know if you guys were aware, but the local results that they've done out there, the beta test in San Francisco, the AdWords that have been appearing at the top are now totally to the side, meaning they're coming up with the recommendations and then the local 3-pack, and then the AdWords are actually to the just total side. They've just totally wiped them off the top, which I find very interesting, because in the Google Partners community, all those people, that's their prime bread and butter. They're AdWords certified. They're AdWords pay-per-click agencies, and I'm just curious how that's going to affect different industries if they're running this beta test. I mean, I don't know, but I just find it really interesting.
Well, I think that kind of goes back to what most of us usually believe anyway, which is that 100% of your eggs shouldn't be in one basket anyway. So, social is going to be part of it, PPC is going to be part of it, other ad networks, organic, local pack, so forth like that. It's all going to accumulate, but you should not be, relying on any one of them to provide all.
If you rely on all of your marketing to come through one channel, like, you have a flawed strategy. Prime example, okay, so I put on a 5K run, okay, benefits a charity, and I also put on a bicycle ride. So where do I do a lot of my advertising? I do a lot of Facebook ads, because Facebook is a social area where runners and cyclists, and they're easy to target in that demographics. The other thing I like to do is I like to reach out to other running and cycling events and say, hey, if you promote me, I'll give you 2 free entries that you can give away to your people to my event. And if you want to come and run it yourself, or bike in it yourself, I'll give you another free entry if you want to participate yourself. And you get a free entry just for coming out. And so now I get those other events. Now they're promoting me. And then I go and hand out flyers at events as well. I'm that schmuck who takes those postcards and puts them on people's cars, and I do that at all those 5Ks and all those bicycle rides whenever I can. That's where I spend a lot of my Saturday mornings, to raise awareness about my events that I put on. I don't make any money on my events. All the money goes to charity. So it's time out of my life that I'll never get back, but I find it rewarding. And it allows me to take my kid with me now, which is a lot of fun. So I don't put all my eggs in one basket of just doing Facebook ads or doing some Google ads. I go out and I have to pound the pavement. Shortly here, hopefully I'll get a good bit of money under the Google nonprofit program. If any of you have never checked that out, I strongly suggest you do it. It's a very good program. But I don't put all my eggs in one basket for that program or for my events, because if I only did Facebook and they turn that off, then I'm screwed. Or if I only reached out to events, and then if I did something wrong there, or a major event just decides to not work with me, then I'm screwed. And then if a police officer was to show up, which has happened in the past, where I went to events to flyer events, and I had police officers tell me that I could not flyer an event. I couldn't even stand outside and hand flyers to people as they were leaving, and I had to argue the First Amendment with them and say, it's actually protected under the First Amendment. I can stand here and I can hand flyers to people if they want them. I can't shout, I can't yell, I can't use a bullhorn, which I don't like to do anyways, but I can hand stuff to people. If they choose to take it, they choose to take it. I just hate it when people throw them on the ground, because then I have to go back and pick them up and try to hand those ones out again.
How do the cops feel when you argue with them about that?
They realize they're wrong.
Don't tase me, bro.
Don't tase me, bro. So yeah, no, they realize they're wrong after a little while, after I tell them to call their supervisor. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some stuff to think about there. Putting all your eggs in one basket. Never do that. When it comes to SEO, I don't do it.
Here's another way to think about it, and we have to talk to clients about this quite a bit, is, okay, so they love their PPC. Okay, that's fine. That's great. What our goal is to try and get your organic up enough so that your leads are being generated from something that doesn't stop when you stop paying for it, so that you can move the PPC budget over to things where you do not have visibility or where removing it doesn't impact the results. So if you're doing PPC for a certain set of keywords and having both the organic result and the PPC result is bringing in additional leads, well, then don't stop paying for that. But what frequently happens is by having that organic placement, you can stop paying for the PPC side of it with minimal, hit, and then that means that you can go allocate that PPC budget to a key term or a phrase that you're not yet doing well in organics for. So that, to me, is just smart marketing.
But so why is it, Kevin, that all the big brands continue to bid on their own name, even though they show up organically?
Oh, well, it's cheap.
Yeah, at scale. for them, it's cheap. For a small independent business, when they might see one lead over the course of 3 years come in from that PPC thing versus the organic, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm being facetious, of course, but I'm just saying is that, you know, at some point in time you got to decide whether or not that traffic is actually converting and is worth actually paying for. If you're a big corporation, you can toss the money at it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the other thing. It's like one of the things I like to tell clients is I'm like, hey, if you want to spend, I have clients that spend literally like $50,000 to $100,000 a month in PPC. It's a good bit of money. And I tell them, hey, that's great. I don't want you to stop the PPC. But what if we can increase the quality of the pages of where you're paying less for PPC, and then you can take that budget and you can put more into PPC spend. So now instead of getting 20% of the pie for $100,000, now you're getting 30% of the pie for $100,000, and that's worth it. And they're well, oh yeah.
And it's cost per leads, folks. I mean, it's how much money does it take for me to get that lead in the door and to convert it. And so what we do quite often is we'll extrapolate that out for people and say, well, here's the opportunity that was generated by the PPC. Here's the opportunity that was generated by the organic. So if you're going to have to cut back your budget or you're going to have to move it around, are you going to cut the thing that is less expensive per lead? Probably not. You know. So, but for us, it's not a question of replacing it. It's a question of then could you spend some money on Facebook advertising? Then could you move that over to Twitter advertising? Oh, that doesn't work. How about bringing on somebody to run an Instagram account for you if that's where your audience is at?
Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to on a lot of this stuff is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's just not smart. It's not wise. It's not the right thing to do. Spread yourself out over a course of 3 or 4 things that you do decently, one thing that you do amazingly well at, but 3 or 4 things that you do decently, and try and improve those things to raise that up. So yeah, and Molly and I have been chatting here back and forth about nonprofit, about Google Grants. Yes, you can do lots and lots of stuff with Google Grants. They'll give you like about $10,000 a month if you're a nonprofit, just about $10,000. And if you exhaust that, then you can apply for the $40,000 a month. And so there's tons of good money out there. There's a whole bunch of different rules though about how you can advertise and where your clicks and even what your ad copy is, and there's a whole lot more rules to Google giving you free money basically than one might think. You just don't just have a nonprofit. You actually have to be in GuideStar. You have to be in the IRS database. You have to be all these different hoops you have to jump through. It's taken me almost a year to jump through all of them, and hopefully in about 3 weeks. Yeah, I will be approved on that. And then I'll have lots of money to advertise with, but it's not my primary place where I use Google advertising. I do other areas. I spread myself across different platforms. I had to teach myself. I'm not a PPC guy. I don't like to pay for traffic. I had to teach myself how to use Google or Facebook ads. It's actually pretty simple. You can learn how to do it in an afternoon for a small business. So I'm not a big fan of it personally.
And it can be hyper-targeted.
I'm running a campaign right now that is to 10 miles off of the geolocation of where my event is started at, and I'm only targeting women ages 18 to 40 and who have the liked interest of running, 5Ks, fitness, all that type of stuff, because that's my core demographics. And I'm like, sweet, but I still have to go and hand out.
For that granular data, is that based on their chatting, what they type into Facebook?
It's based on their page likes.
Well, there's a whole lot of criteria.
5 pages before or something, and based on that, they can determine.
Yeah, if a Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, there's a lot of criteria that they're mining that data up one side and down the other. And so they are looking for all kinds of ways. It could be by people that you associate with, by other people that you follow. It could be by pages that you follow, likes on pages that you follow, likes on posts that are put out there, and which is all part and parcel with their news feed as well, which tries to keep you on the site as long as they can possibly keep you on there.
What about dropping a cookie on your browser and seeing what websites you're going to, and then those websites report back that you've been there?
All of that stuff, yep. Retargeting.
Yep.
I'd quickly add to that they actually also track posts, like so if you're posting about a certain topic, or if you have done a video, and it doesn't have to be a Hangout on Air, it could just be just a regular video. As long as you're using those keywords within the title, it's going to pick those results up as well.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube knows what videos you're watching. You go to youtube.com and you see, oh, related videos that you might like. Before YouTube Kids came out, it thought that I really loved Barbie videos because of my daughter.
Are you denying it?
Oh, I deny it all day long. I do not enjoy those. And my son likes watching Thomas the Tank and Thomas the Train and Chuggington. So needless to say, now I don't have those videos anymore. I see other stuff that I'm more interested in. So, something to definitely think about there is yeah, I mean, ads work. Retargeting ads are great. If you're going to run a PPC campaign, definitely do retargeting.
Also, I would quickly add to this to actually engage with the audience that you're trying to advertise to, meaning if they like something, like it back. If they comment back. Like on YouTube, my daughter watches these Family Finger songs. There's one called, I think it's called Family Fun Pack, and at the end of each video they go, oh, make sure and like and subscribe. So I think if you can do that, or ask for a review, if you can engage with your audience too, I think that's a good strategy as well.
Completely concur. So, but going back to the core SEO component of it, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think we've kind of stressed that. If you do, you're insane. All right, so we got about 13 minutes or less left. Barry's got a dead voice. Danny's got a run. So, see you, Danny. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
See you, man. So, does anybody else have any other things, or we might just end it early today? I think that means we're going to end a little bit early. Kevin's given the die mark, so that's fine. All right, so everyone go out and have an enjoyable weekend. Go out and do something new. Go do something unique, and go do something fun and get away from your computer for at least 12 hours. And turn off your phones. I'm going to go to the Cliff Bar Cycle Scramble, which is going to be hilarious. You guys can look it up online yourself, and but I am going to be attending that tomorrow and having a good laugh. Basically, 6 people all have to ride in. They have to do laps on a bicycle, one at a time. They all have to ride the exact same bicycle. So it's like a relay, and it's really kind of funny. Mud pits, jumps, all kinds of stuff. I'm excited to see the person who shows up on the beach cruiser that does that, or the road bicycle. So, yeah, good times. So, anyways, have a great weekend, and have a good one. Don't party too hard. Don't get arrested.